Section 8. Medical Science. In spite of the glowing reports issued annually from various foreign hospitals for natives, and the undeniable good, though desultory and practically infinitesimal, that is being worked by those institutions, we cannot blind ourselves to the fact that Western medical science is not making more rapid strides than many other innovations in the great struggle against Chinese prejudice and distrust. By far the majority of our servants and those natives who come most in contact with foreigners never dream of consulting a European doctor, or if they do, that is quite as much as can be said, for we may pronounce it a fact that they never take either his advice or his medicine. They still prefer to appear with large dabs of green plaster stuck on either temple, and to drink loathsome decoctions of marvellous drugs, compounded according to eternal principles laid down so many centuries ago. In serious cases, when they employ their own doctors, they are apt to mark, as Bacon said, the hits but not the misses, and failure of human skill is generally regarded as resulting from the interposition of divine will. Directly, however, a foreigner comes upon the scene they seem to forget at once that medicine is an uncertain science, and expect not only a sure but an almost instantaneous recovery, and, unfortunately, a single failure is quite enough to undo the good of many months of successful practice. One Chinaman bitterly complained to us of a foreign doctor, and sweepingly denounced the whole system of Western treatment, because the practitioner alluded to had failed to cure his mother, aged 80, of a very severe paralytic stroke. A certain percentage of natives are annually benefited by advice and medicine, both of which are provided gratis, and go home to tell the news and exhibit themselves as living proofs of the foreign devil's skill. But in many instances their friends either believe that magical arts have been brought to bear, or that after all a Chinese doctor would have treated the case with equal success, and accordingly the number of patients increases in a ratio very disproportionate to the amount of good really effected. Besides, if faith in European doctors was truly spreading to any great extent, we should hear of wealthy Chinamen regularly calling them in and contributing towards the income of those now in full practice at the treaty ports. It is absurd to point to isolated cases in a nation of several hundred millions, and argue that progress is being made because General this or Prefect that consented to have an abscess lanced by a foreign surgeon, and sent him a flowery letter of thanks with a couple of Chinese hams the day after the operation. The Chinese as a people laugh at our medicine, and, we are bound to say, with some show of justice on their side. They have a medical literature of considerable extent, and though we may condemn it wholesale as a farrago of utter nonsense, it is not so to the Chinese, who fondly regard their knowledge in this branch of science as one among many precious heirlooms which has come down to them from the times of the remotest antiquity. We alluded in the last sketch to a work in 8 small volumes called New Collection of Tried Prescriptions, a book which answers to our domestic medicine, and professes to supply well authenticated remedies for some of the most common ills that flesh is heir to. This book gives a fair idea of the principles and practices of medical science in China. It is divided into sections and subdivided into chapters under such headings as the eye, the teeth, the hand, the leg, etc., etc. We gave a specimen of the prescriptions herein brought together in our late remarks upon the methods of extracting teeth, but it would be doing an injustice to the learning of its author if we omitted to point out that in this book remedies are provided, not only for such simple complaints as chilblains or the stomach ache, but for all kinds of serious complications arising from the evil influence of demons or devils. One whole chapter is devoted to extraordinary diseases, and teaches anxious relatives to give instant relief in cases of the face swelling as big as a peck measure, and little men 3 feet long appearing in the eyes. Seeing one thing as if it were two would hardly be classed by London doctors as an extraordinary disease, and is not altogether unknown even amongst foreigners in China. Seeing things upside down after drinking wine belongs to the same category, and may be cited in proof of a position taken up by most observers, namely, that the Chinese are a sober people. Seeing kaleidoscopic views which turn to beautiful women, the flesh becoming hard as a stone and sounding like a bell when tapped, objecting to eat in company, and such diseases have each a special prescription offered by the learned Dr. Wang, with the utmost gravity, and accepted in good faith by many a confiding patient. Chinamen look with suspicion on the sober treatment of the West, where no joss stick is burnt, and no paper money is offered on the altar of some favorite P'usa. Though, if they knew the whole truth, they would discover that intercessory prayers for the recovery of sick persons are considered by many of us to be of equal importance with the administration of pills and draughts. Further, like our own agricultural classes, they have no faith in medicine of any kind which does not make its presence felt not only quickly but powerfully. This last desire was amply fulfilled in the case of one poor coolie who applied to an acquaintance of ours for some foreign medicine to cure a sick headache and a bilious attack from which he was suffering. Our friend immediately bethought himself of a Seidlitz powder, but when all was ready, the acid in one wineglass of water and the salt in another, the devil entered into him, and he gave them to his victim to drink one after the other. The result was indescribable, for the mixture fizzed inside, and the unfortunate coolie passed such a mauvais quart d'heure as effectually to cure his experimenting master from any further indulgence in practical jokes of so extremely dangerous a nature. End of Section 8. Section 9. Medical Science, No. 2. Luxuriating in the mental oasis of Chinese literature in general, and the new collection of tried prescriptions in particular, we have been tempted to carry our researches still further in that last mentioned valuable work. It would have been sufficient to establish the reputation of any European treatise on medical science had it contained one such simple and efficacious method for extracting teeth as we gave in our chapter on dentistry. But Chinese readers are not so easily satisfied, and it takes something more than mere remedies for coughs, cold, lumbago, or the gout, to ensure a man a foremost place among the Galens of China. Even a chapter on extraordinary diseases, marvellous indeed in the eyes of the sceptical barbarian, is not enough for the hungry native mind, and nothing less than a whole section of the most miraculous remedies and antidotes, for and against all kinds of unheard of diseases and poisons, would suffice to stamp the author as a man of genius, and his work as the offspring of successful toil in the fields of therapeutic science. Thus it comes about that the author of the new collection of tried prescriptions gathers together at the close of his last volume such items of experience in his professional career as he has not been able to introduce into the body of his book, and from this chapter we purpose to glean a few of the most striking passages. To begin with, Mr. Darwin will be delighted to hear, if this should ever meet his eye, that the growth of tails among mankind in China is not limited to the appendage of hair which reposes gracefully on the back and saturates with grease the outer garment of every high or low-born celestial. Elongation of the spine is, at any rate, common enough for Dr. Wang to treat it as a disease, and specify the remedy, which consists in tying a piece of medicated thread tightly round it, and tightening the thread from time to time until the tail drops off. In order, however, to guard against it growing again, a course of medicine has to be taken, whereby any little irregularities of the yin or female principle may be corrected, and the unpleasant tendency at once and forever checked. The symbol of the yin and the yang, or male and female principles, has been used in the heading of the cover of this volume. The dark half is the yin, the other the yang. We then come to elaborate directions for the extirpation of all kinds of parasites, white ants, mosquitoes, etc. But judging from the plentiful supply of such pests in every part of China, we can only conclude that the natives are apathetic as regards these trifles, and do not suffer the same inconvenience therefrom as the more delicately nurtured barbarian. The next heading would somewhat astonish us, accustomed as we are to the vagaries of Chinese bookmakers, were it not that the section upon which we are engaged is supposed to contain miscellaneous prescriptions, which may include anything, though it is a somewhat abrupt transition for a grave medical work to pass from the destruction of insects to a remedy against fires. Take 3 fowls' eggs, and write at the big end of each the word warm, at the small end the word beautiful. Then throw them singly to the spot where the fire is burning brightest, uttering all the time, Fu shi faron, fu shi faron. The fire will then go out. There are several other methods, but perhaps this one will be found to answer the purpose. Further on we find a most practicable way for pedestrians of discovering the right direction to pursue at a crossroad. Carry with you a live tortoise, and when you come to a crossroad and do not know which one to choose, put down the tortoise and follow it. Thus you will not go wrong. For people who are afraid of seeing bogies at night, the following is recommended. With the middle finger of the right hand trace on the palm of the left hand the words, "I am a devil," and close your hand up tight. You will then be able to travel without fear. Seasickness may be prevented by drinking the drippings from a bamboo punt hole mixed with boiling water, or by inserting a lump of burnt mortar from a stove into the hair without letting anybody know it is there. Also by writing the character "Earth" on the palm of the hand previous to going on board ship. Ivory may be cleaned to look like new by using the whey of bean curd, and rice may be protected from weevils and maggots by inserting the shell of a crab in the place where it is kept. The presence of bad air in wells may be detected by letting a fowl's feather drop down. If it falls straight, the air is pure; if it circles round and round, poisonous. Danger may be averted by throwing in a quantity of hot vinegar before descending. A fire may be kept alight from 3 to 5 days without additional fuel by merely putting a walnut among the live ashes; and a method is also given to make a candle burn many hours with hardly any perceptible decrease in size. We close Dr. Wang's new collection of tried prescriptions with mingled feelings of admiration and regret. Admiration, not indeed for the genius of its author, or any new light which may have been let in upon us during our study of this section of the mental oasis of Chinese literature, but for the indomitable energy and skill of those who have helped to emancipate us from similar trammels of ignorance and folly. Regret that a nation which carries within its core the germs of a transcendent greatness should still remain stuck in the lowest depths of superstitious gloom. End of Section 9.